Hi, if you've been with us before, you'll notice something's changed. Same work, same system, but higher stakes. Welcome to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Ass.
She stepped in something on the driveway. Was it a sign?
Most people think they get blindsided.
However, they don't.
They're shown first.
They just don't recognize it.
Sometimes what shows up is so obvious, isn't it?
You almost have to laugh it off.
And that's the problem. That is the exact problem.
This is Trust Your Gut, Save Your Ass. I'm Professor Mike.
And I'm Dr. Nick. Real neuroscience, life or death stakes, and zero guesswork.
Today we're talking about signals you're missing in plain sight.
Oh my gosh. The ones so obvious, so on the nose, so perfectly timed.
That you dismiss them as a coincidence or synchronicity.
Yeah, when they're actually, what are they? Precision guidance.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nick, tell them about the phone call.
Well, the phone call I got from a client a few months ago.
And she's laughing when she tells you this story.
Most certainly. It's like the funniest thing that's happened to her all week.
So what happened?
She had just gone to meet a guy she was thinking about dating.
Early stage?
Very early. Still figuring out. Still in the is this worth pursuing phase.
So she drives to his place.
Yeah.
And then what?
She pulls into the driveway, gets out of the car.
First step.
First step out of the car.
Whoa. She steps into something.
Dog poop right there on his driveway. On the cement, no less.
Before she even gets to the front door, that's a shitty start.
No doubt. Before she even said hello, first impression, literal shit.
And what does she do exactly?
Well, she laughs because she's, what else do you do? It's awkward. It's embarrassing.
She cleans it off, of course.
Goes inside and, continues, just hanging out, still considering this guy.
Still thinking she might work.
Still giving him a chance.
And when she tells you this story later,
she's laughing like it's a funny anecdote.
Bad luck.
Bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, just one of those things.
And what do you say?
I stopped her. I said, wait. You don't think that meant anything?
And?
She said, no, just bad luck.
And that's where most people stop.
That's where most people miss it completely.
Because the truth is, it wasn't bad luck.
No, it was a preview.
Before anything unfolded, before she knew anything about him,
she was shown. She was shown the truth.
And this is what people don't understand.
Signals don't show up logically.
They show up symbolically, very different.
Visually, emotionally, sometimes subtle, sometimes obvious.
But always relevant.
Always.
Some people listening right now are thinking, oh, come on, you're reading into it something, it's just dog poop.
No, you're not reading into anything. And that's exactly how people miss these things.
They want signals to show up in a certain way, and they don't.
No, they don't. They want a voice from the sky, a clear warning, a logical reason.
And that's not how your nervous system actually works.
No. Your nervous system, it speaks in images, sensations, synchronicities.
It gives you metaphors.
And when you dismiss the metaphor as just a coincidence,
you actually miss
the message. Everyone's missing messages 24/7. So in this case, what was the message?
You stepped in shit.
Literally.
And what's the expression people use when they get into a bad situation anyway, Nick?
I stepped in it.
Yep, exactly. And that she did.
Yeah.
Before she even entered the relationship.
She was shown. She was shown what she's walking into. She was shown everything about the relationship. As you said, it's going to be a shitty relationship.
And because it showed up as a physical experience instead of a thought.
Yeah, she laughed it off.
And continued forward.
Yeah. Now here's where it gets really interesting.
What happened next? What happened?
She dated him for about 2 months.
And?
He revealed exactly who he was.
And I think I know what's coming, which was?
A mess. Unreliable. Dishonest. The kind of person who leaves messes for other people to clean up.
Both literally and figuratively.
And then she finally ended it. She called me back.
And what did she say?
You were right. You were right. The driveway thing that wasn't.
And this is what we see literally over and over again.
People are shown. They get to see the whole thing in that moment.
Before it unfolds.
Before they have evidence.
They're given a preview, a snapshot.
And they totally ignore it.
Because it doesn't look like they think it should look.
Nice. You're exactly right. So let's talk about this and how this actually works, because it's not magic.
No, it's not. It's neuroscience.
Your nervous system is constantly Reading the environment.
Constantly scanning patterns, threats, misalignments.
And when it detects something that does not match your goals or your values,
It fires a signal.
yes, it sure does. And that signal does not always show up as a thought.
Sometimes it shows up as a feeling.
Oh,
Very different.
nice. Yes, very different. Sometimes a physical sensation.
Sometimes as an external event that mirrors the internal truth.
Yes, like stepping in dog poop.
Exactly. Because your subconscious mind doesn't speak in words. It
No.
just doesn't.
It speaks in symbols.
It creates experiences that reflect what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah. And if you're paying attention, you recognize
The pattern. You will recognize that pattern. It's obvious.
Most people are not paying
Nope.
attention.
They're dismissing it as random, and that's the problem.
That is, coincidence.
Synchronicity, bad luck.
Yes, when it's actually the most relevant information they could possibly receive.
I mean, here's what's really so frustrating about it.
Well, what's that?
People will pay thousands of dollars for a background check, a credit report, and references.
Nice. All external.
Yep.
All external
They'll
validation.
completely ignore the free, immediate, and perfectly timed signal every time.
Yeah, and it shows up in the moment.
Because they don't trust it.
Yeah, they think it's like too simple.
Yep, too obvious.
Too weird.
All that going on, so they override it and overlook it.
Yep. And then later, when the relationship or the business deal or the job falls apart,
They say, "Oh, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known."
and we're here to say, but you did know.
Wake up. You were shown.
You were shown. You just didn't trust what you were being shown.
Now, let me give you another example of this.
Oh, please, go ahead.
I had a client who was interviewing for a VP position at a company.
Big opportunity
Yep,
here.
huge six-figure salary, title, everything he wanted.
And
He shows up for the final interview, walks into the building, gets to the elevator. The elevator gets stuck with him in it for 45 crazy minutes.
before the interview, right?
Right before the interview, he's sweating, he's stressed, calling the recruiter, he's apologizing.
Oh my gosh. And when he gets out,
They're very understanding. They reschedule. Everything's fine.
except
Except he still felt weird about it.
what did he say something to you?
Yes, actually. He called me that night and said, "I don't know if I should take this job. Something about the elevator thing is bothering me."
Wow. Wow. Okay. And what did you say?
I said, "Wake up." I said, "Hey, what does stuck elevator mean to you?"
And
And he said, "Well, it feels like trapped, like going nowhere."
wow, dig this.
Okay, no way out.
And did he take the job?
He did, because the salary was too good to pass up. Okay, he looked outward.
Wow. Okay. And
6 months later, he quits. The company was toxic. The CEO was impossible. There's no room for growth. He was trapped,
trap for
Tra-
sure.
trapped, going nowhere.
No way out
He was shown,
before he even started.
but he didn't trust it because it seemed too obvious, too weird, and too much of a
Yeah.
stretch.
Appearances, but it wasn't.
Nope, it was perfectly accurate.
Perfectly. So here's the question. Why do people keep missing these signals?
Because they're looking for logic.
They want cause and effect
They want it to make too much sense, too logical.
and symbolic communication does not make sense to the logical mind.
Right. The logical mind says dog poop is just poop. It doesn't mean anything.
I know. This is such a problem. This is why we started the Institute. The elevator getting stuck is just a mechanical failure. It's not a message.
But that's not how your subconscious operates or works.
No, it's not. It doesn't care about logic.
It cares about patterns.
And when it recognizes a pattern,
it creates an experience that reflects that pattern.
beautiful. So well put, Michael. Now, you can see it externally.
Before you have to live it internally.
Yes, that's the preview, guys. That's the preview.
And that's the warning.
And if you dismiss it as just a coincidence,
You miss the chance to avoid the crazy outcome.
yes, and here's where people get stuck.
They say, "Oh, but what if it is just a coincidence? What if I'm reading something into it that doesn't mean anything?" What about that?
That's a good question.
Fair question, actually. And here's the answer.
If you're genuinely unsure,
Pay attention to how it makes you feel.
not what you think about it.
what you feel about it.
Yes, because if it's just a random coincidence,
You won't think about it again.
no, you'll brush it off, you'll move on. Most people do, but
If it is a signal,
mhm, it'll stay with you, like in the back of your mind.
it's
It'll
going
come up later in the
yeah,
day.
it's gonna nag you
Yeah.
back and forth. Yep,
And you'll keep coming back to it.
and that's how you know.
Yes, the signal has staying power. So when the woman stepped in the dog poo and couldn't stop thinking about it,
That was the signal.
it was. When the guy in the elevator kept feeling
Mhm.
weird about it,
That was the signal
but they both overrode it.
because they didn't want to look paranoid,
No.
okay?
They didn't want to overthink.
Mhm. They didn't wanna make too much of a big deal out of nothing,
Out
but
of
it
nothing.
was something.
And it wasn't nothing.
It's everything.
It was everything. It was the entire relationship condensed into one moment.
The entire job experience condensed into one event.
One event, the whole snapshot. They were shown.
They just didn't trust what they were seeing.
No, and that's the issue here. That is the deal.
Not that the signals aren't there.
They're always there.
They are always there. The issue is trust. Trust yourself.
Yes. Do you trust yourself enough to recognize the signal and decode it properly?
And then act on it.
Yes. Even when it doesn't make logical sense.
Most people don't. They
Mm-mm.
do not.
No. And that's why they keep getting blindsided over and over.
Let's give them a few more examples because once you start seeing the pattern
Yeah. It's really, you're going to see it everywhere.
everywhere,
Everywhere.
it's part of reality.
It is 24/7. A woman meets a guy online.
First date
First date. They're meeting at a coffee shop.
and
She gets there early. She orders her coffee. She sits down at a table by the window.
the table is wobbly.
Oh, I love this one. The table's wobbly. It's unstable. Everything she puts on it tips over.
And what does she do?
She laughs it off. She blows it off. She even moves to a different table.
And continues the date.
Yes, 3 months later.
He reveals he is emotionally unstable,
Oh my
a
God.
wobbly dude.
You talk about too perfect. Can't hold a job. Can't maintain consistency. Everything in his life tips over.
So it's wobbly.
She was shown.
Before she invested,
Yes.
shown at the front end.
Oh my gosh, and she didn't recognize it.
Another one.
Man is thinking about going into business with a partner.
They're finalizing the agreement.
They meet at the partner's office to sign the paperwork.
And then what happens?
Well, the partner's assistant brings in the contracts,
And
and the partner immediately starts arguing with the assistant in front of the client
oh, wow.
over something minor.
How they treat the people who they can't fight back.
No doubt. Exactly. And that's how the client feels. Exactly. And the client feels uncomfortable.
But signs anyway.
Isn't that interesting? Because the deal is too good to pass
Mhm.
up.
6 months later,
The partner is impossible to work with, blames everyone, explodes over minor issues.
exactly what he demonstrated in the very
Yeah.
first meeting.
Yes, given that preview. Exactly.
One more, just one
Okay.
more. Okay.
Woman is interviewing for a job.
A dream job?
Yes, actually, a dream job. Perfect title, perfect salary, everything she's worked for.
And what happens?
And she shows up for the interview. The receptionist tells her the hiring manager's running late.
Okay. How late?
An hour,
Wow. No call, no apology.
nothing. She just waits.
And when the manager finally shows up,
Doesn't apologize, doesn't acknowledge, launches into the interview.
and what does the woman do then?
She's so grateful to finally be seen. She's grateful he's there. So she doesn't bring it up. She doesn't mention it at all.
Okay, so she takes the job.
She does. And within 3 months,
Her time isn't respected, her boundaries
No,
aren't
no.
honored. She's constantly waiting for feedback, decisions, and approval.
yes, yes. Oh my gosh, she was shown how she'd be treated.
In the first interaction,
Yes,
actually,
and she ignored it. She dismissed it
because she wanted the job.
that badly. And that's the pattern. That's the pattern.
People override the signal every
Yeah.
single time.
They want the outcome.
They want the relationship, the job, the partnership.
Oh, yes. So they ignore. They ignore the truth. They ignore what they're being shown.
And then they get blindsided because they pay for it later. They pay for it.
They certainly do, and it's costly. So how do you stop doing this?
Well, you start by recognizing the signal for what it is to start with.
Nice. Yes, not random, not as random. as information, as data.
Perfectly timed, perfectly relevant information.
Yes. And you ask yourself, what is this showing me?
Not what does this mean logically?
What is this showing me about what I'm walking into?
And you trust the answer, you trust yourself.
Yes, even if it doesn't make sense yet.
Even if it seems way too obvious and way too weird.
Yes, absolutely, because that signal is always, always accurate.
Always, always.
And even, often it doesn't make sense in the moment.
But it will. It will.
Yes, it will. When you look back,
You'll see what it was, the most accurate information that you received.
absolutely. And here's what we want you to do.
The next time something weird happens,
Something that feels off or doesn't sit right.
don't dismiss it.
Don't laugh it off.
Ask yourself, what is this actually showing me?
And pay attention to the answer that comes.
Not the logical
No,
explanation.
the felt sense.
And this is important, the knowingness, the knowing.
That's the signal right there.
Once you start trusting it,
You stop getting blindsided.
exactly.
Yeah.
You start seeing things before they actually happen or unfold.
And you make different choices.
Better choices, good choices.
Yeah.
Okay?
Choices that protect you instead of exposing you.
Life doesn't blindside you.
It previews.
Before anything happens or unfolds
You're shown.
in ways that are perfectly timed, perfectly relevant.
And perfectly obvious in hindsight.
So the question is, can you recognize it in the moment?
Can you trust what you're being shown?
Even when it doesn't make logical sense.
Because the people who can,
They don't end up in situations they have to recover from. They don't get blindsided.
they navigate differently.
They choose different.
They live differently.
And it all starts with one simple shift.
Stop dismissing the signal or the signs.
Start trusting what you're shown.
The woman who stepped in the dog poop?
She knows now.
She sure does, and she'll never ignore that kind of signal or sign.
Because
Again.
once you see it,
You cannot unsee it.
so trust your gut, trust yourself.
Trust your gut, save your ass.